I want to move on to
caller number 4.
My favorite heathen, Ocean. You're live with Eric and Jamie. How's it going?
Hello, Eric, my heathen brother.
Hey!
How are you doing today?
What's good, dude? Okay, so for those of you who don't know Ocean, now I'm just getting comfy in my chair. Okay, those of you who don't know Ocean, well, what do you believe, Ocean?
I am a couple of things, I guess. I'm a syncretic polytheist, which means that I'm an adherent to multiple pantheons. So I'm a polytheist. So
last time I talked to you, you were an Odinist.
That is a term that we don't really use.
Which pantheons do you subscribe to?
So the term that we tend to use is heathenry for the Norse pantheon.
Yeah, but you're calling in to talk heathen, so we're going to fight you on it.
Right, but we've been doing it for longer, so,
Bring it.
Let's see, I think we've been using this term for about 1,000 years.
Our fans can beat up your fans.
I don't know, man. It's
fan rumble not guaranteed.
Are covered in tattoos and messy, and they carry axes.
And they have
it's just
fucking awesome beards. That level of bearding, man.
Our fans use science and technology. Bring it. We don't actually want to start a fight. Don't fight anyone.
What did you want to call and talk about, man?
Yeah. Well, there was a call. It was several weeks ago where it was after our non sequitur conversation, which I enjoyed the hell out of. I thought that was a good conversation. There was a conversation that went into experience and the epistemology that kind of like extends from that. And a caller came in and said that I got you on something. And I guess I wanted to kind of talk through that a little bit because I don't believe that I'm playing gotcha games when I'm having these kind of conversations. So
can you clarify?
Or at least I try not to.
Caller called in and said, got you? Just as background?
This was the week. I can't remember. I don't remember the caller's name or anything, but it was on the issue of how when we were talking about experience and that everything that it gets into like, this was very far into the conversation where we get into
the problem of induction
discussions of problem. It's sort of problem of induction, but it's also that all evidence that we receive goes through experience. And we talked about reading a book, which was a bad example. Actually, I think that you could take it to an experiment that you're not going to be able to learn from the experiment unless you experience the experiment.
Which is a really, really funny way of looking at it because, you're right, technically, man, because you're right. I can't learn a thing without learning the thing. Yeah. It is experiential. But that doesn't necessarily mean, because I've thought about it since then. It doesn't necessarily mean.
What was your thoughts since the, I was kind of, I want to lead into that. Like, what have you been your thoughts since that conversation?
Everywhere. Oh my goodness. I dove into it. I was talking to people on the Discord. We have a Discord, by the way, and Ocean is in it. You got to check it out. It is fucking awesome. There's an ACA Discord, and I'm in there a lot. Sorry, I had to plug that.
Link in the description.
I was talking to people in the Discord about it last night, and they had a point, and I was like, oh shit, now I have to reevaluate again. Right? Because I want to know as many true things and as few false things.
Pretty regularly on that Discord.
I
brought in a few of my friends.
Which was awesome because you have a lot of very, very deep thinking, very open and honest friends. You have a few who like to be devil's advocate and just push buttons, but not all of them, so that's okay.
Yes, that's true. I'm not going to deny that at all.
But, so what I will say is... Let's define the problem of induction because I don't want to be talking about something that everybody's like, what the fuck are they talking about? So when we're talking about the problem of induction, we're talking about how can you get away from inductive logic toward deductive logic if everything is prey to the black swan fallacy, right? All of the swans that I've seen are white. There's no such thing as a black swan. Yeah. I'm saying that because I've never seen one. We know that that's fallacious. So how can we move forward to deductive logic? And I looked into it because I was kind of stumped. And I thought, you know what? I overthought this because there's a place for inductive logic and there's a place for deductive logic. And deductive logic is for things that we are defining. right? If we're using the definition of a word and just going that way, right, assuming that the premises are true, we'll come to true conclusions. Now, we can be wrong about those premises and later go back and go, okay, since the premises weren't true, we're going to have to reevaluate. But until that happens, using the best definitions that we have, that's really the best tool that I think we can get to. It's not satisfactory, right? But I think the only thing that would be satisfactory is for me to say that I can come to absolute knowledge about a true thing, and I can say for sure this thing is true. And I've talked to people who said, you know, you were there. There was a presuppositional apologist with you and I on the line in that Discord, and he was saying, well, how can you know it's absolutely 100% true? Either it's 100% or it's nothing. Well, that's not true.
Are we talking about
evolution fails or whatever?
Yeah, evolution falls. Yeah,
falls. Whatever.
He's a trip.
Yeah. Well, the thing is you are throwing the baby out with the bathwater, because if we are coming to our best approximations of what is true, if we're getting ever closer, and it's that fight, it's that struggle, it's that excitement of moving forward and doing it, right? Why would you discard that? You know, every time we make a mistake, do we give ourselves permission to find
discarded? In my case, can you be?
No, it was in the
Oh, okay, all right. I thought you were talking about me. I was like,
no.
Hold the phone.
I just think that you make a special pleading case for thinking that it's reasonable to believe in multiple gods, but that aside,
that I do. That's actually an interesting thing that I wanted to go into a little bit.
But I feel like Jamie's kind of out of this conversation. I feel really awkward because he's my co-host and my buddy. So, what do you?
Well,
I'll
whether
chime
or not
in.
it's special pleasing, I think is important.
Okay, no, I'm against special pleading. I'm for special pleasing, Ocean.
Oh dear.
Okay.
Oh God.
Which god?
Apparently, Ericology is a thing. Can you believe in me?
I believe that you exist.
What's up?
I haven't had an experience with you beyond phone calls, though.
Yeah, but you're going to come to Austin. We're going to have a beer.
More evidence. It's almost like the limited experience that he has is sufficient for him to conclude with some level of confidence that you exist, and that he doesn't have to directly be in the same room as you in order to hear and receive sufficient evidence that he can experience to conclude that you exist. So at the beginning of this conversation, one of the things that stuck with me was, in order to learn something from a study, I would have to experience that study myself. No, you can experience a report.
Not what I was saying at all.
I know that's not what you're saying. It was something that I think was alluded to, and it's definitely an argument that I've heard before. So as far as that idea is concerned, I would say no, you can experience the report of that scientific experience, of that particular experience, and you can evaluate how trustworthy the report that you're reading is based on the source of that information. So there's a certain level of reliability to my experience that these two mugs that are now off screen, that this particular, fuzzy guy over here exists. I experience it. That
For those of you listening to the podcast, he pointed to the flying spaghetti monster that we have on the shelf.
Yes. I can experience that myself, and I can tell someone else about it, and they can tell me, no, I've been in that room, I was in that room with you, I didn't see that. And we can have two contradictory personal experiences about that. However, the way that you approach a more objective and a more reliable understanding of what is real is by adding more eyes, more subjective experiences to what you can establish as the most reliable evidence for that. So the most reliable evidence that you could produce for this guy's right here is pictures of it, video of it, testimony of it, probably in that order. But the point being, for someone to say, I wasn't present during that entire scientific study, well, you hear stories about things that happen all the time. If you watch the news, you're hearing a story that is reported to you, and you evaluate how trustworthy that news reporter is, how trustworthy the organization they work with is. If you have systems of human beings checking each other's reliability, for example, if you had an entire network of peer review examining the methods, the methodology, and the results of experiments and replicating them so that you're not examining a single historical event, you're examining a process that can be repeated, I think that there is an overwhelming supply of evidence and reliable results that you can use to come to the conclusion that this method is reliable for producing results, right? We are on the internet
Where
right
were
now.
you in the Discord last night? Someone was asking that question.
Last night I was here doing stuff.
So, Ocean.
I'm trying to figure out.
They didn't ask me for a lecture.
On anything that you just said, so.
I got a question for you because
quickly.
we have a couple theists on the line. I do want to get to them, but I do want
Other
to.
theists?
Yes, we do.
Yeah.
I do want, and atheists too. I do want to ask you a question because I want to continue this conversation. And so my question to you is this: how important is it to you in the life that you're living that the gods that you believe in exist?
I don't necessarily ascribe an importance to it.
Okay.
It's something that I agree with. It's something informs much of the way that I live my life. I think that there's a utility to it.
Okay. So let's say
I agree that it's possible that it's not true.
okay.
And I understand a lot of the arguments
So
that are in that direction, but I also think that there's plenty of argument. I agree with the arguments that lead into my position.
So what I'm hearing is that part of the reason that you believe some of the things that you believe is a level of utility and a level of logical arguments that support the existence of, for example, the gods that you believe.
The utility is the reason why I keep it around. The utility isn't the reason why I believe.
So if you could be
the reason why I
presented,
believe has more to do with the experience and then subsequent philosophical arguments that follow
so
from
if
that.
you could be presented with evidence and a method of examining these things that you found to be more reliable and that you found more reliably explained your experiences, would that weaken your belief in the things that you believe now and possibly strengthen your belief in the things that you were presented with?
Are we moving into, I think that this is kind of a street epistemology set of questions. I think that, and I've discussed this, I think with Eric, that I don't think when we're discussing something that's on like a spiritual level, we're looking at something that is outside of the confines of empiricism. There's not.
Well, we disagree with that.
We don't have an ability to test them. We don't necessarily have an ability to observe.
So why would you believe them?
Well, because I'm not a physicalist. I think that there's problems with physicalism. Okay. And I think that if you're going to be a pure empiricist, then you're going to wind up walking into physicalism, which has a lot of, there's a lot of problems with it.
I don't think you've, sorry, let me just jump in here. So when I asked you why you would believe things that you don't have like empirical reasons to believe, you said, well, I am not a physicalist. Okay. Why is there something, can you elaborate specifically on why you come to conclusions without an empirical basis for them?
So I think that the empiricism fails when we're talking about moral questions. I think that it fails when we're talking about aesthetic questions. I think it fails when we're discussing math. I think it fails when we're trying to prove other minds exist. Okay, so I think it fails when trying to establish that empiricism is the method that we should use. You can't empirically validate empiricism. So you wind up having to use other things in order to justify these things. Gods are but another category in this conversation.
So what I'm hearing is that there are things that you believe should be supported by a method of knowing, right? Your statement, empiricism fails, for example, you said on questions of morality. What I'm hearing is that empiricism is insufficient to support this, and therefore I do not use it as a reliable way of understanding what exists in the universe. Moral questions are not about...
That's not what I said at all.
No, okay, then I misheard you.
Because I think that empiricism has its uses. I'm not going to say, we shouldn't use empiricism at all. I think that empiricism is incredibly useful when it comes to physical claims. Okay. Like when it comes to things that you can observe and run through empiricism, it's amazing. Okay. Like look at the accomplishments of science.
Do you think that the gods you believe in interact with the world?
I think that they do.
Is that something that we can observe?
Could be scientifically measured.
Okay. What?
I think that I just answered that.
Okay.
Sorry.
So if they interact with the world,
He's saying you're saying that they cannot interact with the world, right?
No, I'm saying I think they can.
Okay.
I'm ultimately agnostic on it, but I think that because it gets into questions about what you mean by that interaction, like, do I think that they move around physical things? I don't think that that's necessarily the case.
Well, and we're getting a little abstract here. Like I want to,
because
I want to plant this in reality, right? Really quick. So for our viewers, because we're starting to lose, I want to plant this in reality, right? Let's go with the Norse pantheon, and I'm going to say Thor because Thor is very popular right now because Marvel movies.
I'm happy to discuss
right?
Thor.
Thor
I wear the Mjolnir.
Thor has Mjolnir, right? Is Mjolnir a real hammer?
As in a physical hammer? That's not my belief.
Okay.
It's not the belief of the majority of heathens either that follow Thor.
Okay.
So is Thor a breathing human being like you and I?
Or a breathing god?
No. That's also not an understanding either.
Okay.
I can get into it a little bit.
Well, I guess what I'm walking through here is I'm pulling it away and I'm showing, it's really, we can have this conversation for each other, but I want to have this conversation for the people watching as well, right?
Oh, that's okay.
And
we can just kind of go through the basics.
And when we're talking about polytheism, right, when I first met you, my thought was, holy shit, he thinks that Odin is real, that he can go to Valhalla and that it's a real place and that there are Valkyries and that, all of this other stuff and that...
Is that the case?
A lot of people agree with that.
But do you?
I mean, let's see, Valhalla. I'm actually reading a book on what the beliefs of Valhalla are called Road to Hell, which I suggest for anybody that is interested in getting into it. It's by a historian.
Well, I would actually point people to Snorri Sturluson.
Well, okay, so to be
clear...
No.
This is... she's using Snorri as a source, but her name is Hilda Roderick Ellis Davidson. The book is Road to Hell, discussing the Norse concept of death. It's a history book, and it talks about kind of like what the belief of Valhalla was, as well as the Helheim and a lot of other such things. I wind up being agnostic on the afterlife.
Okay, so
I know a lot of heathens that aren't.
Does it matter to you?
As far as whether or not the afterlife exists?
Well, whether or not Valhalla exists.
I mean, same diff.
I mean,
many afterlives. I don't have any plans to go to Valhalla. I think that Valhalla is like it gets into other beliefs about the multi-part soul and a few other things. Mm-hmm. But I apologize for having a complex religion. But
no, that's okay. I'm just trying to define it for other people. What I want people to see is that we're not.
We can talk about the afterlife.
You're not talking about corporeal beings. You are taking this to a place where we are playing a really, really, really fun mental game back and forth, and I feel like it's a lot of fun. But I don't think that it has any basis in reality. I think that when you're talking about sharing a world with other people and exploring and investigating that world, empiricism is the best way to go. And that when you're talking about metaphysical qualities, when you're exploring those possibilities, that's fantastic. But until you're able to show that one explanation or one possibility is far more likely, or you have proof for one explanation or possibility over another, then until then it's just a fun game, and really it's important.
I have agreement and disagreement with you. I think that if you're going to be telling me, let me try and phrase this correctly because I don't want to run off the rails here.
No, it's okay. I just want to phrase this.
If I were
I just want to frame this. Go ahead.
If I were a heathen missionary, so like going out and trying to convert people and stuff like that, I'd agree with you that someone would need to have a little bit more evidence. But heathens, polytheists in general, we tend not to work that way. It's if you have had this experience and you're looking for explanations and so on and such as, we tend to say, here's some sources that you should look into, investigate this further for yourself, and people wind up kind of becoming heathen in that direction.
So they do or they don't use empiricism.
Religion.
They don't.
I don't think that empiricism is applicable.
Okay,
Well,
but if you provide evidence
It's
and
saying
ask
yes
people
or
to
no.
examine the evidence, what do you call that?
Wait, the research that they're doing? Or the reading that they're
the
doing?
research that they're doing.
So if I can get into the systems of UPG, VPG, and SPG.
Well, I
Okay.
We
Well,
don't think
let
we
me
have
let me
time for that
circle
one.
There's
back
like an
around to the
empirical value to it,
the line of questioning that I had before, which is you've said that the God beings that you believe exist interact with the world.
Mm-hmm.
All right. In what way?
I think that they might be. I'm not sure what the mechanism for it would be.
Well, no, but
there
what
does
is
seem
the
to be some
effect of
kind
their interaction?
It might be a projection of presence. That tends to be what polytheists describe when they describe personal experiences of gods, that there is an overwhelming sense of presence that has
So it is.
a feeling elicited to it, that it's a comfort that is coming from somewhere other than them.
and this is
there's
where I get
an experience
to.
during prayer
So-
or some other
So
such thing.
they project an experience into the minds of believers, or
Possibly.
people that haven't,
Like
they don't
I
believe
said,
yet.
I'm not sure what the mechanism of it is. I don't think.
Well,
that it-
I'm just
there's
trying
any
to
way
make sure that
empirically
that's the
examine
case.
it.
I mean, actually, Ocean, this is a good conversation, but I think that it will take longer than we
Yeah.
have left in the show, and we have other callers to
Oh,
get
of course.
to.
Well,
I'd like you to
It's
stay in
like an
touch
hour's
because I would
long
also
thing.
like to have a lengthier conversation about
And
this.
I actually want to jump in because I think that we just uncovered the part where I call special pleading, right? And that is that I don't think there's a good place for anecdotal evidence when it comes to the beliefs that you have for the world that you're in, right?
I think that anybody who's holding the position needs to be holding it provisionally.
well, and
Because if you're going to be, if
well,
you're gonna have an
actually, I
honest
think there's a
position as
dangerous
polytheist,
there's a danger to holding it. Period. And I'll tell you why.
Why?
Because it closes the door to investigation. Because it says I have a provisional answer, and if I'm okay with that and I'm not willing to explore, then you could never actually find out the answer. And there is a chance that you could.
provisional answers in science close the door to explanation. That's not my
Well,
experience with
actually,
polytheists
in
at all, is
science,
that you
yes.
wind up with
Yes, in science, take a look at, we were talking about the ether before, right? People thought that the ether existed. And so what we did is we bottlenecked our ability to explore because we were trying to show the medium through which light moves. We really thought ether was a thing, right? And I'll give you a real life example. I was talking to someone the other day, someone I care about, who asked that I not give any information about them, so I'm not going to, but what I will say is that they're willing to spend thousands of dollars going to a clinic to get detoxed. They don't have any addictions. There wasn't even a great explanation of the
what
toxins.
detoxing is.
Yeah.
Right? There was no explanation of methodology, but what they did have is a shit ton of anecdotal evidence. What they had is a whole bunch of experiences with people who said, I went to this and this amazing thing happened. This was cured. This was fixed. This person, and when you do that, right? You are taking that person away from their ability to move forward. And specifically, and I don't think you do this, but I think the danger in that type of thinking is that you get suckers. You get con artists who are willing to take advantage of people who get that provisional thought. And instead of saying, I don't know, they say, well, this could be true and I can live on that. But I think that you would recognize the how bad anecdotal evidence is as evidence. And I think that you would point it out in other places, but I think you're holding this type of special pleading for yourself. And I'll let you have the last word
Can I
before we move
respond
to
to
the
that?
next
'Cause I think
caller.
that there's-
Absolutely.
Yeah. As far as there's a lot of things to address and all of that. I'm sorry. So with the special pleading aspect of it, I don't think that it is special pleading, to be absolutely honest with you.
Well, so we are still near the end of our
Okay,
show
sorry.
and have other callers, and
Okay.
we do this show once a week, and also
Ocean, you just need to get your ass down here so we can have a beer. I love this.
Yeah.
We can do that for Patreon content. Just
I was going to
sit
say
down,
there are other
get
times
drunk,
we can record
and talk about the
so
nature of the universe.
Thank you for calling in, Ocean.
Good call, Jay.
Sure. All right.
Take care,
Well, I
brother.
guess I'll talk to you guys.
No,
later.
really, reach out to me because there are other circumstances where I think Eric and I want to take conversations in different directions, and I'd rather not have this.
I recall something that I wanted to say as well, as far as that, because there's.
Can you say it in Patreon, or in
Can I say
a
it really
different...
quickly?
Go. You can do it. Go.
1, 2, 3, go.
1, 2, 3, go.
All right. So
Start a timer.
I think that it's not. You're not going to be able to prevent con artists from existing necessarily just by saying this. Well, we should embrace empiricism in all cases, because, like I was saying earlier, there's still a lot of things that I think empiricism doesn't necessarily cover. And even if you have people that misuse science, even though that it's a wonderful system, that they'll take something in science and then expand it into something that is very con artist-y. And you can do that. I think that you can do that with religion. But just because you can do that with religion doesn't mean that the claims that are being discussed in religion don't have validity or that don't have value. And
well,
I think that that's worth exploring and definitely worth a continued conversation.
Fair enough. But you take care. Thank you for calling from Africa. What time is it out there?
It is 9 p.m., man. It's pretty late here.
Get a good night's sleep, man. You take care. All right, brother?
Night.
All right. See you guys.
Bye. I can talk to that dude forever. For some reason...
You don't say.
It is just too much fun. I mean, because the thing is and Ocean, we can talk about this later. I don't want you to feel like this is sniping. But every chance that we can take the tools away from con artists, we should. And I think that using science to con people stems from a misunderstanding of science, not from using the actual science. But we will talk about that later.